Today's daf is daf lamed hey. We're still discussing in the Mishnah the discussion between Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Yishmael. Taisa brings Rabbi Yishmael then was very young, in the earlier years, and was questioning Rabbi Yeshua, who discussed why the cheese vinus akum is forbidden. And the first Rabbi Yeshua said because of the what do you call it? He said because they used to use the rennet of a nevela of a carcass, and Rabbi Shmuel asked back, we're talking about a carbon oil. The rennet is not considered food, but a carbon oil, which normally you're not only use for yourself at all, you're stealing and you're and all the laws that come with it, and all the implications. Nevertheless, when it comes to the rennet part of it, inside the other, it's nothing. It's not considered food at all. So then he changed his mind. He said because they used to use Avodah Zarah, the rent for Avodah Zarah. So Bishmael said, if so, then it should be Asa Bahana. Why only Asa Achila? So Bishmael, instead of answering him, decided to change the subject. So says the Gemara, Heisi, about 10 lines at the top of the page of Lamed Hey Amud Aleph. And Rabbi Yeshua changed the subject. And the subject was, how do you understand the pasuk? Your friendship is worth more than your wine. Adi Eden saying it to Hashem, therefore it's in masculine, and Hashem that what? That we enjoy your friends, the Rabbana, more than your wine, the Torah. Or is the Abishah saying, or either talking about themselves, the Abishah saying to the Eden, that I enjoy your dinim more than my own, which means that it's lashon nekeva, because the color of lashon nekeva. So he concluded that it's lashon zacher because the next few pasuk Shem Turishmecha is lashon zacher. Says Gemara, what's going on here? Why he brings? He also first of all, what's in the pasuk? He didn't say to Hashem. We enjoy the words of your friend. Those we enjoy the words of Chacham more than the Torah. It's hard to understand. That's an insult. You're telling somebody, I enjoy your friend more than I enjoy you. Is that a compliment?
Absolutely.
Here we just talking about Liebschaft. You love. Friendship. It's all about friendship. Coming up soon. Why punkt this posse to bring up? He was actually hinting to him something in a very nice way. For the first part of the pasuk, it says that you shakenu min ashikut, right? You should kiss me from your mouth, and he ties amalei shmol. Seal your lips with each other. Stop asking me a question. Don't ask me why we asked her the cheat. My time. Why talking out? What's wrong? This is a brand new gzeda. The ein mefakvim ba, as we'll soon see, when they made the minigos, when they made a new gzeda, they decided not to give the reason. And first of all, in halacha, there's a big difference if you give the reason or not. If you give the reason, then if the reason becomes part of the halacha, when the butler timer, then the halacha falls away. If you don't give a reason, then even whatever reason the real reason is, doesn't matter. It remains. But the reason why I did not give the reason is because there'd be cynics out there, and they'll say, such a remote chash klepnish, and then the gzeda will never be the skabel. You make it like Tzemach Tzedek said that in the Babich, we don't drink mashke on Pesach. Kiva Eger said you should not drink mashke, and he said he had a tam kamus. He said if he would have given us the reason why you don't drink mashke, we would find a way around it or find whatever. But now that he gave tam kamus, we can't argue. So let me hear. So my gzeda. So what's gzeda? So now we're asking. So okay, now it's later. Tell us what's taka the slaughter of the reason. Why is cheese over going? So why? We shouldn't nikur. Because the snake might have. Because in Gilu we learned a few days ago, the snake might have drank from the milk, and therefore there's venom there. Malay. So mishum nikur. So what's the Mishur so embarrassed? Let him say because the reason is because of Gilu. Says Gemara Kidula Marula Ki goes gzeda to Marava. Never they made a gzeda net to throw like megalu time, but they would never reveal the reason. Ad trese yarchish for a year to go by, people should be makabelit, accepted, so complying with this particular gzeda, and then I'll tell you the reason why. But people out there that might not agree with this sort of gzeda, but and they'll come and they'll lighten it, or they're gonna not treat it with a due respect. Megadib Borabim Bibasur was making fun. If that's the reason, or he said, I don't understand. If the reason is Nikur Gilui, we know that the venom of a snake prevents certain things from happening. It won't If it dried up, dry cheese, it couldn't be that there was venom in the milk because then it would never allow the milk to dry up. Or Yoshin, if the cheese aged, Tishter again, because we know the venom, like a few days ago, prevents it from the thing actually changing to something else. Because the doesn't allow you're worried about whether it's nikkur or not, whether it's gili. If you see that the cheese aged, no issues. Because it wouldn't allow it to age. Said, you know why we don't know? We can't really test for gili because cheese has pockets, and these pockets have a little bit of milk. Now it could be that the venom is in those the little milk pockets that remain taki milk. You don't know if it's because normally when you make cheese, there's always a few milk pockets, or this is the venom bar. That's why you can't test it. It has the little pockets of milk. And says the Gemara, Shmuel Amar. Just like we'll learn later on about cholabakim, that we're ready to test the cheese. If even mix in with milk. So we answer we can't because there's little pockets, and maybe the cholab, the milk from the animals that cannot turn into cheese are ended up in those pockets, and therefore we have no way of testing. Shmuel said another reason altogether. You know why? Not because of nikur. And we'll discuss that. Before we said that the rennet itself is the milk that's left over in the keva. Now you tell me, well, what about the keva itself? That they would cut a piece of the more of the animal, and they would put that into the cheese. They let it curdle. So the Gemara, it sounds from Shmuel, how keva gufa shari. Because we had a discussion. The chol of that little bit, is that perish ba'alma? It's nothing, or is it considered food? It seems from Shmuel, when Naflamet Hay near the bottom, we're discussing here about cheese of a guy why it's also. So first you said maybe a snake drank from the milk, and that's why it's dangerous. So then we asked if it turns into cheese, obviously it's not. There's no. If it's talking about zakum, what should be the problem? So we answered the little pockets and where the milk remained not as a solid but as a liquid. Who knows? Maybe the poison is there. Now we're giving another reason because you use it as rennet. But not like we said before that the leftover little bit of milk, the residual milk, which is perish balma, is the rennet. But according to Mary's discussion, or he said because the oil they use the actual part of the udder itself. So it sounds like the keva tzavamut. The Shmuel actually said that. But now we learn keva. It says like this in the Mishnah: keva ha'oivek kachavim, the keva of a goy and vishal nevela of treif. There's two different cases. Harezu hasur. They're both asur. Now l'chayda, is it also like perish balma? No, we're talking about the leftover milk. It's not food; it's junk. It's waste. No. That's not a problem. The oil is definitely real. The question is the fact that he said we're worried about the oil. We're not worried about the. No. We're asking a question. No. That's exactly what he's saying. He's worried about the oil kavas nevela. What it means? What about the kava itself? What about the rennet itself? Going from milk is not a problem. Why is it a problem? Because you obviously hold this perish balma. It's only waste. Let me ask you a question. From another thing that Shmuel once said, explaining this Mishnah, where it says that the kava of a goy and vishel nevela and the kava of a nevela are the leftover milk. Harezu asur. It's also havina. What are you breaking up in two cases? Shmuel says this is exactly what he's saying here. That kevas shchitas nevela asur. In other words, it's not perish balma. That this little bit leftover milk there is asur. So what's going on here? First, Shmuel kocht an oil, which means that the leftover milk is not a problem, and there in the Mishnah clearly learns that it's all the same. Like kasha, it's not a kasha. Kan koidem chazara, kan la'achazara. First, Rabbi Yeshua said the reason is right because of the milk in the cave. That's the first thing he said because the rennet. Then Rabbi Shmuel said to him, how can it be by a korban oil if a kohen eats it raw? It's not a problem. And like moilin and bechulu, only we don't want to eat chatzkila, but like moilin and zevayit, and which means that it's perish balma. And oil is much stricter than stam treif. So what do you tell me that it's so he changed? So that's called koidul chazara. When before it was Asr. Then Rabbi Shua changed it to the cave of an avodah. We're worried about the taking Avodah Zarah for an animal for Avodah Zarah. So then that's Acha Chazara. That means so first he thought it is considered some of the it's a problem, and then he decided it's only Perish Balma. So Shmuel's commenting either one's before Chazara or after Chazara. And the Mishnah never changes, and we discussed already once before. Why the Mishnah, once they realize it's a mistake, whatever it is, or they change their mind, why don't we just change it? Because once they chazed out things in a certain way, that's every time the Gemara says, so put the words in. If you know it's missing for a word, just put it in. Because once you chazed about pen, and if you start playing around with the words, you forget everything. So we leave everything where it is. Malkaya, interesting. There's a few places where we mentioned Malkaya. We don't rather go back to the saying we had a few days ago. There's Malkayoi, and here they left us alone. They expect us to remember at least from a week ago. Rav Malkaya, Mashmei, the Rab, Malkaya said, "Name Rav, you know why Venus Akim is usher? Make it shine, to make it glisten. They smear it with the fats of a chazer on the outside, on the surface, and that's the problem with kosher cheese." Rav Chizda say, the problem is they use as a catalyst. They use wine vinegar. It's the problem of wine.
The whole Indian of Stamyainum is
we're talking about common. It was common for them to use as a catalyst. Maybe they wanted vegetable, they didn't want meat. So they used wine vinegar. They did, in the sap of an erla, which is, and they used to use that as a catalyst, and that's why the problem. So the Gemara follows the following time. There's another machlek. Rabbi Lezer says hamami b'saf ha'ola osip neishu peder. Rabbi Lezer said that if somebody's maimed with the sap of an erla, it's forbidden because the sap of a tree is not like the tree; it's like fruit. It's like food, and therefore it's osir. Now the problem is, Rabbi Shua is one of it's not osir. So how can you tell me the problem is here? Remember, Rabbi Shua is one of our Mishnah who says that the cheese of a guy is osir. How can you tell me the reason is because you're maimed with the sap of a tree of erla when Rabbi Shua holds that it's not a problem? Says the Gemara, when we say the sap of the filled Rabbi Shua, I can't Rabbi Shua the guys talking about what the sap of the tree. I will be the payda, but the sap of the fruits themselves, he's moida that it's osir, and that's what they used to use to produce cheese. Says the Gemara, what exactly is the sap of a fruit? Does he mean like the leaves of the tree? The sap, the fruit itself. That's
sometimes you see oozing out of the tree.
So it's a tree part, not but with the right next to the fruit.
It comes out.
Like, yeah, I know, a sticky thing. So is that? Yes, exactly. No, the tree is. I think he's talking about the bark. The stem. So when he says stop, he's talking about the little twigs that are attached to the payda. From those twigs, I mean, it's not the payda itself. That would be the juice of the payda. That would be the food itself.
No, the arla from the guy was also.
It's still arla. Once he eats it, takes it. He's going to buy it. Says the Gemara. I feel temperature. I can have a couple of the page of my behind it's not we learned Amr Bashua Shamaiti. Bashua actually said, I heard Shamaimi Besaf Olin that there's the sraf of the leaves of Sraf Hayikar and Mut of the Sraf Hapagin, but the sraf of those, let's say, dates that are things that are not ripe, also who paid it. So it sounds more like it's the sraf of the paid itself. What exactly is that? Says the one thing I don't understand these two last reasons, whether it's arla or which is not only osabachila, it's also osabana, or whether it's wine vinegar, it's not only osabachila because it started out being wine, which is yain and then osabana. So why is cheese of a goy only osabachila? It should be also osabana. Should be osabana. Kasha, it's a kasha, and you can't give the answer because it's not the end. Because we said yesterday that a dover hamaimid is never bottled because it's always as if it's there because you see the consequences of its activity. Kasha, remember the kasha on that, but it's not objefrekt. I mean, there is a schwache answer, but it's not objefrekt. But it's not great. So anyway, right? Look at the top traces, by the way. Your question about the oil of a goy, very top line.
Usually, the equivalent. My son, I don't know, maybe this is only
Yeah.
my son, if he doesn't ask about it, he's allowed to buy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what
Yeah, okay. So he's either talking about like that, those opinions that say that the Earl of a guy is us.
you say then, what's the funding here? To maybe even this where sunshine comes.
According to everybody. Okay, but Jesus says it goes according to the Mandoma, or goes, he said it's that's what I got. Okay. Second one, right there, daughters, I'm not going to be able to use my next year. I'm not going to say what's in the policy. Lereach, Shmanech, Taibi, more finish off like we should got it to like the Mishnah. That Lereach, Shmanech, Taibi, that the fragrance of your oil is good. Lamba Tamachacham, Daimil, it's like why are Tamachacham compared to like some kind of perfume? Megula, that is not covered. You know, so you have a beautiful fragrance wafting through the room. Very nice thing what he says there. So it's fragrance spreads, wafts around the room. If it's covered, so I guess migula, if the perfume is uncovered, then everyone benefits from that fragrance. But mechusa, if it's covered, then nobody obviously smells the fragrance. And so that's the tamina chama compared to oil that's uncovered. That things that till now were covered from you, but if you are if you teach others, Rashi says here, very interesting. Rashi takes as a whole different shop, but Rashi says me'atzman, all things that you didn't understand on its own. Beloy toidach, you don't even have to heard of it. Kishu malamdo and teach others. Suddenly things reveal themselves to you that you didn't know. Teja says, "No, balabatish. People come to you and consult. So between all these people, you get to know things that you wouldn't know otherwise because you're learning with all these people that use you as a mentor and so on. So therefore, they come and reveal things to you. Don't know so much about their personal things, but in Yonim, love that Torah, but Chal in Yonim Vot. You know him, Meiser Marash, when he told the guy not to go into business 3 times, and the guy didn't listen, he was under pressure, and then he lost all his money. And Marash said that 3 types of Chassidim. Now those who believe in the Rebbe, because Shchinim are better for growing so much. There are those who say that a Rebbe is so bottled to the Torah, it's a lower level. So whatever they say is that's Torah. This is how Torah thinks, and therefore that's the advice they give you. And then there are those Nishdas and Nishdas, nothing holy about it. But the Rebbe has so many people visiting him and they're sharing their knowledge. He must know a lot more things about the world than almost anybody else because he sees so many different people. And the Rebbe says on all 3 levels, you shouldn't have done what you did. So here also, it tastes something like what he's saying here. I don't know if he means Rosé hen, he means their private things. What do you gain out of knowing somebody else's private problems? What's the big mind in that?
Whatever they're.
Yeah, it could be Roger Trader, it could be anything. It could be Roger Trader as well. I mean, that's a definitely, but it's a lot less limited. Then what weiter. Then we'll go weiter. If you give shiurim, as you know, no, if you're willing to open up the bottle and share the Torah with others, then other people benefit from it. Secrets will be real to you. And how do I know that? It says Alom. It says in the pasuk Alomois Aho Avucha. Alomois can mean hidden things. Well, Karibe Alumas, things which are helam. The Malach HaMavos loves you. Now it says Alomois of the Karibe reads Alomois Al Mavos, the one who's in charge of me. So we had in Simon Gemara Chagigan. Malach HaMavos likes Tamil Chamim.
What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you want to. He's not going to hit you so much. Yes. Void. You benefit from 2 worlds. It says, we had a condition that we don't need to get schar, mitzvahs in this world. We had also in the beginning of this Torah. But this is first Torah. But if you're learning Torah, you benefit Sayin Elam Hazan and Sayin Elam Hazan. I mean, this is a little line over here we should be used to promote as a sales pitch why people should learn. It's helping Sayin Elam Hazan, not just this is schar, lost and lovely. So well, Hayim La Say so Machal Kabas Chanim is Tuma Mitzvahs. Here we're saying about Torah. Next Mishnah. So until now we learned about things which are Asa B'Achila and Asa B'Hana. Now this Mishnah lists things which are Asa B'Achila and not Asa B'Hana. And the following. The following teaching are Asa but ain't Yisurin Yisurin, but they're not Asa B'Hana. Cholov Shecholov Eilig Achavim. Cholabakum. The Ein Yisro, the Ein and the Eid was not watching. V'hapas and bread, v'hashemen and oil shalehen. Now, why is Cholabaka muscle sunsi? But bread and oil used to be a time period that oil of a goy was usher and had all to do with chasnas. We are worried about socializing. And we'll talk more about it later. Rebbe ubezdino hitire Hashem. Rebbe and his bezin will matter the oil. The Gemara will talk about how can you change, if there's usher, how can you make it mutter? Rashi said we're not goy to Rebbe bezdino because it was his grandson who did it, Rabbi Yehuda in the Sea, which you want to say later, and he was not on a tali, he was on a murder. So it can't be, he took it out of the Mishnah. Other Rishonim say that Rebbe Bezdina Matzah, but nobody listened. It's only when his grandson came in, and Rabbi Yehuda in the Sea, and he made a thing out of it again, so that people listened. But Hashlokos and Bishalak cooked. And again, this all has, now Shlokos is a separate category, so some of the Rishonim say, if it's all chasnas, put them all together. List them together. Shemen, Pas, Shlokas. So they say a shlokat is another shash, and that is I might put some treif in there as well, in addition to the problem of chasnas, and therefore the dinim, the outcomes are very different. The question the chaymitz and these things that you marinate that you normally put in wine or vinegar, they're also b'achila v'chayshit, but not also b'hana. The toddies, again, some kind of a fish, terufa that's minced, so you cannot tell what the, if you have a fish with the skin on it, you can see whether it's kosher or not. But here it's all minced up, you can't tell the origin. Yeah. Can you make gefilte fish out of any fish? That's the tzir and brine she'ain ba daga kalbis. If it doesn't have in it sitting a daga kalbis. Interesting. Rashi learned. Most Rishonim learned, or many Rishonim learned that she'ain ba daga kalbis. They used to have a minhag. If they had brine, fish brine, they would put the origin, the original fish, pieces of it that you can recognize what it is, into the tzir. So, but if there's no fish in there, then you're chayshish. That doesn't keep from treif. But Rashi learns an interesting thing here. Rashi says that you use brine from kosher fish, like bacteria from the brine itself comes out some pieces. Look at that here. Shederech kalbis legodol me'eleha b'tzir shodogim. This kalbis, whatever it is like the spontaneous. Just grows there. Yeah, whatever it is. Should tell him. What in the world is it? That it grows spontaneously from itself, from the tzir. Okay, but anyway, the others trying to say pasha that they used to leave pieces of fish in there, so that like you buy sardines, you can see the skin of the fish, whatever. Swimming in there. The hachilik, that's the fish that we learned before, the small fish that when they're in the water, initially they don't have any kosher samani, but when they come out, when they grow up, they have kosher samani. But at the early stage, you cannot tell the difference between a kosher fish and not kosher fish. And when they would catch fish, there was sometimes they get fish there as well. The hachilik, so you don't have that. And the koilich achilta, some kind of fruit, I'm not sure what it is. Melach. Shalkudins, we want to explain later on. Hadeli, all of them are asab, we'll see later why it's asab, ain't Yisur and Yisur enough, but they're not asab enough. Let's talk about cholov, my name. What are you worried about? Why is cholov akum asab? This is not chasna, so what's the problem here? If you're worried about you punch a swap. Tahar chiver, tameh yaruk. Tahar fish is white, and tameh fish. Tahar milk is white, but tahar milk from a camel or whatever it is yellow. Okay, not going to drink it on its own. Yeah, rather we can tell the difference, but we're scared they substitute it because it's much cheaper than milk. So they will put a little bit in, and if you have enough of the white milk, it will sort of take away the yellowish color. So they get away with it, like mixing water into wine to get away with it. The Amamar Cholov Toyd Gemara says, even turn into cheese. Test it. It seems in those days most people did not buy milk to drink. They bought milk to turn it because how long could they keep it fresh as milk? So they would use the milk for butter, cheese, other things. Kutach. That's what we learned. Cholav Torah, it's the best thing. If you make it with cheese, no problem. So you want to eat it, you're right. If you want for cheese, you're right. There's no issue. If you could buy, right now seems to be saying you could buy milk from a guy if your intention is to make it a cheese. According to the first answer, you want it for a meichel, for a food, and therefore you won't be able to know. Take a little sample, take a sample of it. Take a little sample, then take a little piece of it, turn it to see if it turns into cheese, and then you'll know it's no problem.
So what's happened to the rest of the milk?
But this kind of kamcha, whatever, yeah, true. Even the betoy nami you can assume it like kamcha. Even the toidig milk, not 100% of the milk turns into cheese. Is a lekel make all the milk. So therefore, you can say maybe this is the regular white milk, and the reason why this didn't turn into cheese is because not all the milk turns into cheese. You still won't know. Or he boy say afilu. The Gemara says no. Now the Gemara is saying is that you cannot buy cheese from a guy assuming that the milk is all right, because I told him the but since there's parts of the milk that won't curdle, and you won't know what it is, so you can't have that. This is very interesting. There's the Radvaz in the Tshuva and the Pri Chodesh back to one of the. They both say that it's the day that nobody does it anymore. It's excited with a tam. So if there's nobody does it anymore, it should be mutter. So there's a fascinating Tshuva of some shape. I mean, the Ramos is clear that even in our city where there's no reason to be chayshish, once it's excited, there's in place it's awesome. There's a fascinating some shape. He says that Radvaz and Pri Chodesh, they think they're helping and making it worse. If they say that there's no chash anymore, and this is going back in their times already, he says since the Shulchan talks about cholav means people still, everyone kept cholav. So now, since it's better mutter, and yet they kept it, that's the get of a neder. It becomes an isa deraisa. It's no longer a isa derabon of cholav. He says today isa cholav isa deraisa, and he brings from other prichadas and some of that the isa then brings to the children and grandchildren, like all that isa. But if you don't learn that vaz in prichad, you learn that Shulchan. The reason why it's us is midrabanan because they made a gzeida all these years ago because of this chash. They mix in, and therefore that chash is still there. It's only the and he says the big nafkamina. So he says all those people who say that the reason about the time thing makes it worse, not better. Interesting what he says there. And Amisha, that was the one who came along and came up with a new gather called Chalav Stam. What? He's saying that there's no problem if there's a city with no chazerim growing into it, there's no turning animals. He says that there is no reason it should be mutter. It should be mutter completely. I'm saying on that. What?
It's basically, I think emotion has a building source holding like himself.
Yeah, it could be. Could be.
He calls it companies.
Yeah. Or they call it Chol Stam. That's the new get it. But today it's Rav Ashkenazi told me, I'll make it very quick. Rav Ashkenazi told me a whole bunch of my stories then. One thing he told me is you look at that tshuva, that famous tshuva where he told you Rav Moshe Cholvakim, and he concludes the tshuva and he says, and therefore you should be Shem Shabbos and Zevaita. And he said that he was told, I can't remember who, was a personal friend of Moshe told him, and Moshe explained, in those days it was so difficult to keep Shabbos because you had to work, otherwise if you didn't work on Shabbos, you were out of a job and there was no unemployment benefits, nothing else. So when people started to drink cholavak, there was no such thing as cholav Yisrael, they felt goy. So what's the difference? They didn't understand the difference between cholavakim and Shabbos, so they just made it easy for them to do everything else wrong. And Moshe felt it's time to take a stand and find a heter for cholavakim and let them keep the Shabbos and the Levite, and that's why he finished that off, and that was his motivation. I'll tell you a story later. Another story. No, it's not from here. From here. Oh, that's another truth together, which is a very difficult thing. And not in Nachmet, he said in Tafshem Aleph, he said that if you could buy Cholav Yisrael cheese, you have no Cholav Yisrael milk, you have no excuse to buy Cholav, which is not then obviously an open blanket heter. But let's go back. Lapas bread, pas was not mutter bebezen. Why would you have to say that? Miklal the Shari, there were those who thought that it's mutter. Yes, the Chiyos of Dimiyam Pamacha once Yotzer Rebbe L'Soda. This is a very controversial Gemara. Rebbe once went out in the field. A guy brought a big oven that baked a large amount of dough. Rebbe, how beautiful is bread. Why did they ask it? Look how beautiful, smelly it is, but it smells so good, so nice. Nothing smells better than smelling fresh bread. What's he saying? We said because of chasnas, we don't want you to be too close. Why in the field? You'll see the guy once, you'll never see him again. Where's the chasnas here? He did. Now this is a problem. Now there's a big machlekes from Harlan's Gemara here. Kisvurim ha'am he did Rebbe a pass. People when they heard the story, they thought that Rebbe dropped the whole. He's against it. against the Easter of Pas Akum. The law is not so. Rebbe Lehitas a Pas. Rebbe was not Matzah Pas Akum. So they made a mistake. That's Pasha talking about it. Rabbi Yeshua came and said, "You don't know the Kafir Ma'aser Law." Another story. We saw that they didn't have much bread on, but there's no bakery here. Go back to the bakery. Because we didn't know they thought he meant go to bakery. Well, so he meant the Yiddish bakery. So that was a mistake. Bottom line is, if you learn Pasha talking about it, people made a mistake, but there's no heter for Pas Akum at all. Pas Palta at all, especially the second version. There's no heter at all. Amr Chelba says that even the one who said that you're allowed to that they no, according to this shot, even according to those that made a mistake and thought that it was a palter over gechavim, the allowed that Rebbe said you're allowed to eat, like a palter throw. Even that mistake was only based on thinking there's no breda. And Rabbi Yochanan says, there's no problem of chasnus. We'll never see the guy again. I will be here in the city, so this is one way of learning Pshat, which means that there's no heter for palter. This is what Rabbi Chelba and Rabbi Yochanan are saying is those people who made a mistake, even those people, this is what they thought, but it's a mistake, which means there's no heter at all ever. That's one way of learning Gemara. The other ways, because big machlek is showing is that the fact that Chelba and Rabbi Yochanan is saying this doesn't make sense. That they're trying to explain a mistake. Why would they be explaining a mistake? No, they hold tak halacha l'maisa that there is a heter for pas palter, and how far do we go? So pas palter only with there's no pas yisrael. According to the Ramah brings that even if there's pas yisrael, you're allowed to go pas palter. And then later on the Bishas says that if the pas palter is better quality. And machlek zachareni, what about if it's cheaper? Is it, because they talk about better quality, so it's like a shasat chak, because such good bread you can't, sourdough bread you can only get in this bakery, you can't get it in the Yiddish bakery, let's say. So that's considered as if there is no palti Yisrael. So anyway, it's fascinating. We don't have time to talk more. Eva have a menakev ochel pas abe mitzvah. Eva, you sat and ate pas of a goy on the border, like in the field, and this is where it comes in along. Sounds like there is some kind of a head to there. Why would Eva eat it? Don't talk to him ever again. He's eating goyish bread. What was he thinking? So obviously he learned that there's a head hating for pas palta, at least besada. Yeah, pas besada. So therefore, this is it's just fascinating the halachas happen in the Gemara. It's so obvious that it seems to be usher, and yet you look in the Rishonim, and then you look in halacha. It's sort of Ramah is very very makel. But then they go conclude. Says tshuva, you have to be macher and pasik. Some said that. In Shmuel, it says mainly and says Tshuva. I'll go stop over here. Have a good day.